So you thought Diontae Johnson not being at OTAs was a bad sign. Well, so much for that. He's back. We're going to talk about that. Kenny Pickett talking for the first time at OTAs and some interesting leadership moments we got with him and Cam Heyward with video from that interview. I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Joining me today is Tony Serino. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy. Hit the subscribe button to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus episodes and our breaking news content. We thank you for making the Locked On Steelers podcast your first listen every day. If you want to help out the show, go on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review with a positive comment. Do both at the same time, and you get a shout out at the end of the show. Joining me today is our man, Tony Serino from the AFC North Talk podcast. He's also former co-host with me on this very show. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to talk OTAs. We got football to talk about. Even in the month of May, we still have football to talk about.
Of course, there's always football to talk about. The NFL drives this machine. This is how they built it so that we don't ever get breaks. But good news, if you were a fan of Diontae Johnson and wanted to see him practice with the Steelers, he showed up. And I tweeted this out on my Twitter account at Carter Critiques as soon as we were legally allowed by the Pittsburgh Steelers at noon of Tuesday. But he was back. He didn't talk to media. He's supposed to talk with when minicamp arrives. But his arrival, Tony, got some good responses from a lot of the guys, especially the rookies when we talked to them. I was talking to Calvin Austin. And Calvin Austin, as a rookie, was like, told me, he's like, hey, I watched tape on that guy. I watched how he got in and out of his breaks. Yeah. That's a dude that, I studied him from afar and was always impressed by. He's like, but now that he's here, like just one day of watching him, getting in and out of his breaks and getting into his cuts, he's like, that's the stuff that I want to play like. And so it's been interesting. Even just one day of Diontae Johnson showing up turns things around. But on top of that, Tony, it kind of puts to rest any of this notion that this was a problem in the first place, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, I think it puts to rest the idea of like he's going to skip all of OTAs and he could potentially sit out of training camp, which I always thought that was a little silly in the first place. I thought he might skip OTAs just because, he's a guy in a contract situation. We saw TJ Watt, did his hold in last year during training camp. So,
right.
Look, he still wants a contract. This is still going to be a guy come training camp time that is going to be doing the whole like, all right, well, maybe I don't practice today because I got, I'm a little sore because I want to, he wants a contract and he's in a contract year. Certainly his play on the field is deserving of, some sort of contract. Now, obviously the Steelers and him are going to dispute what that number should be because wide receiver numbers are greatly, greatly inflated, but it's nice to see him at minicamp now, because this is not something he had to do. This is a guy in a contract, same with Minka, right? They don't have to be here, and you really wouldn't expect them to when they're, when we talk about guys in contract disputes. So, the one thing that's interesting, and this is where I get to tinfoil hat Tony time, which is why is he here now, and why he wasn't there, and then kind of midway through OTAs, he just decides, you know what? I'd love to show up. Actually, I'd love to go to optional voluntary OTAs while I'm in the middle of a contract dispute. It does make me think a couple things, Chris. Obviously, I was joking with you before the show. Maybe he's just a big Omar Khan fan, and he was kind of a solidarity with Omar. Until they sign Omar Khan as GM, I'm not showing up. Which totally. The math adds up there. I mean, what you can't dispute, Chris, is that the math there, it adds up. No, the other thing I'm thinking is like
I love how you said that and then just kept moving, so I didn't be like rebut. Like, no, what are you talking about?
No, I mean, like, you can't. No, I don't think you understand. The math adds up, so you can't rebut. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is just a 1 + 1 is 2 situation, so we can move right on to the next point.
My goodness.
So the other thing is, I wonder if this is kind of like, hey, this is
equals 2.
I wonder if this is a sign of good faith on Diontae's part of saying, like, look, let's get this deal done. I want a deal done, and I want to be here, and I'm going to come to a voluntary OTA practice or a week of voluntary OTA practice, that I don't have to be there because I want to be here, as a sign of good faith of like, let's start getting this contract going here. Because as we know, he can't sit out training camp, right? The Steelers have that policy of, if you don't show up for training camp, it's old Heyward thing. If you don't show, we're not going to negotiate, period. So you're not getting a contract extension if you don't show up. And so that, I think, maybe there's some of that here. It's interesting that he skipped a week and now he's back. I'm happy he's back. I love the player. But of course, your mind obviously goes right to the contract situation, because there's clearly going to be a further dispute once we get into July.
There's a lot of things that you could say about that. And I do agree. It is kind of different, but at the same time, it's voluntary.
Yeah.
Chase even said, like, he's probably getting in more work wherever he's at than he would be at OTAs. For people to understand what that means, it's not mean that the Steelers are lazy, but when you're at OTAs, the idea is you're doing stuff with the team, you're doing stuff together. But when there's stuff with the team going on, you're not focusing on yourself. You're working with a drill. You're not drilling yourself. You're not improving your hands. You're not improving, specific things about you. You're off. And in fact, when you're on that first team, you're probably watching more of the backups and probably helping them a little bit. And there's merits to that. But you're right. Diontae Johnson being in a contract year, him not showing up, to me, was always more about him needing to prove himself, because this is his contract year.
Yep.
If Steelers don't take him, he needs to earn his future in the NFL. And I mean, you look at his Twitter account. He said, "I ain't say nothing." Last week on May 27th. Then he said, and then he tweets out another one: "Don't judge my choices without understanding my reasons." Now, granted, Diontae Johnson is A1 wide receiver tweet your cryptic tweets guy. He does that very well. But at the same time, this is it makes sense to me, because he's like, what, I was taking time to do my own thing. I came in, when I wanted to, and and who knows, maybe there was a change of heart, or maybe it was just like, what, this was the plan all along. I wanted to do stuff, or I had another trip planned and I needed to get these things done going in, but I know it was obvious from his Twitter account that he was paying attention to people not. People tweeting about him and saying, "Oh, he's not going to be here," but it was just getting all over the place. I mean, there were even blogs saying, like, "Is Diontae Johnson about to be traded?" And it's just like, that right there is a little too much.
Yeah, look, we used to get on Ben Roethlisberger, around this time for OTAs, and of course, it was the result of the quarterback, wide receiver, and getting on the same page with everyone. And hey, let's make sure Ben is here to get on the same page. And of course, it was like 2 or 3 years ago when he conveniently had a vacation. I was like, oh, I just had a vacation plan for the first week, so I'm going to miss the first week. Look, I don't think it's a huge deal making or missing. I do think, though, that this, the idea that he's there, again, I think it speaks more to where they are of that contract dispute. I also think, potentially Diontae could be thinking about it this way. Look, let's say I don't get a deal. Let's say I'm Diontae Johnson. I don't think I'm getting a deal done. I've talked to the Steelers front office. They presented me some early numbers, and they're not even close to where I think I am. Well, the worst thing that could happen to Diontae between now and the start of the season is that, whether it's Mitch or Mason or Kenny, that they work out a rapport with another receiver on this team, whether it's Pickens, whether it's Claypool, whether it's someone else. And Diontae Johnson all of a sudden kind of becomes that, look, he's never going to be an odd man out because he's a great route runner. He's always going to be open. I mean, he's going to get his. But you certainly don't want to end up like James Washington did a couple years ago, where him and Ben really never got on the same page. And he came, he had what was like a pseudo breakout season with Mason and Duck. And then, he just kind of was the forgotten man the next 2 years of Ben. Diontae cannot, quite literally, cannot afford for that to happen in this offense because he's in a contract year. So it does in that way behoove him to show up to these things and build that rapport with whatever quarterback it's going to be.
I do agree, because I mean, these are young quarterbacks. They're developing their tendencies, and if you can be a quarterback security blanket, if you can be their guy that when they're in trouble they go to you, that's something that you want. It gives you more opportunities to make plays, and even if that doesn't mean anything for the long haul, because he thinks that he's going to be somewhere else after next year, you need this year to go really well. And last year, I wouldn't say last year went terrible. People will remember those drops at the end of the season, but he finished with the 6th most receptions in the NFL, the 10th most receiving yards, the 10th most first downs by any wide receiver in the NFL. Those are all pretty good numbers, considering you had a very limited version of Ben Roethlisberger. But I do agree, he does need to establish that rapport. He does need to show that he's making those strides. Those are and I think those might play into why he showed up. I also think he did show up because he was big about practice last year. I think, and you go back to how he was showing up early for every practice, coming back late. He's a guy that's been that guy. So I'm not totally shocked here. My whole thing was I didn't think he'd show up for OTAs, but I was very certain he would show up for minicamp and then training camp and then all this contract talk would just be like, okay, we'll revisit this after this season when the Steelers have to make that decision. But we'll see how that plays out in a year's time as things here. But the bottom line is he's there, and he got to see Kenny. He got to see Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett got to see him for the first time and getting thrown at him. We'll talk about what Kenny Pickett's thoughts were there, as well as we got to talk for Kenny Pickett for the first time since he's been at OTAs. Because he wasn't available last week. We got some interesting tidbits from him and some thoughts about leadership and what's going on, not just with the quarterback room, but with the Steelers leadership as a whole right now on the roster. We'll talk about that in just a minute here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. But first, we got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. Built Bar has delivered a big new one. It's called Built Granola Bars. If you're a fan of granola bars, you have Built Bars delivering 3 new unbelievable flavors of granola. There's chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. If you want to try all flavors, you can get them in a mix box at built.com right now. They're so different from the bars and the puffs. Built granola bars are loaded with granola. It's the perfect combination of crunch and chewiness. But just like the bars and the puffs, these babies are packed with protein and covered in 100% real chocolate. And with 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar, Built granola bars will change your world. Built cracked the code to get better granola, and they're perfect, healthy snacks as they're going to help pack your lunch, take on the road, or just take with you anywhere. And they are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. So if you've been waiting for the healthy and delicious granola bar to hit the market, now is the time. Head to built.com right now and get Built granola bars, 3 delicious flavors for you to try: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, white chocolate berry. Don't miss out. Get yours today at built.com for Built granola bars. And if you go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order when you visit built.com. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm Chris Carter. He's Tony Serino. And we are doing things here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Talk about OTAs. Now, Kenny Pickett did talk for a bit, and this was cool because we got to see the first round draft pick quarterback, who's the young guy in the room. And there were some interesting tidbits here and there that he was giving. One I thought was very interesting, talking about the quarterback competition, because and I put that in quotes because of the way that he talked about it. When we asked him, when we were asking him, or someone asked him about him, he was like, honestly, he's like, we compete every day. There's not as much, there's no like real tension. There's not a real competition between the 3 or 4 of us. It's just about, we're just about here trying to compete to do our best each day. And he said, honestly, you guys, meaning the media, make more about this competition than we do. Yeah. And I thought that was interesting because this is a guy who you were drafting the first round to be, a franchise quarterback. You weren't drafting the first round just to be a guy that was going to hang around and do nothing, and they signed Mitch Trubisky to probably be the guy that could take on the load of being the starting quarterback while Kenny Pickett was adjusting to the NFL. But still, it's interesting to have that kind of approach, but also I think it's interesting, but it's not like an unhealthy or like a lack of competition. I think it's more so just, hey, like, we're not worried about competing with each other right now. We're just trying to get settled in OTAs here.
And I think it's interesting that Kenny was the one that said that to you, because I wonder if Mason Rudolph would say the same thing, about the competition, because for him, this is, he's like, this is his last year on this deal. He's kind of, he is fighting for the spot that presumably was his from the time he got drafted, right? When he got drafted as that 3rd round pick to take over for Ben Roethlisberger. Whereas with Kenny, look, for him, yes, this is about getting acclimated, just kind of to the NFL. There's a great picture on the article you had on Steelers Now that we'll talk about in a second. But like, the look on his face is very much, you could tell that with Kenny, it is very much a dream. Like, there was the whole, after he got drafted, he talked about what a dream it was. He's going to be going to the other side of the facility, right? He's going to finally be with the Steelers. He had been watching them for all this time because he played in Pitt. And now it's a reality, right? Now it's like face like, oh, right, I'm the Steelers quarterback now. I'm in the Steelers locker room now. Like, this is a different experience. And I do think when he talks about like this, I don't really think of this as a competition. You can take that answer another way. You could take it a little with just a tinge of arrogance, maybe maybe arrogance is the wrong word.
I get what you're going, but I don't think that's it. But keep going.
Yeah, but because arrogance is probably the wrong word, right? But the guy, look, Kenny Pickett's going to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers at some point. They drafted him 20th overall. He's a first round pick. He's the only quarterback taken in the first round this year. And unless this ends up in like a crazy Matt Leinart situation, where Leinart gets drafted, but then Kurt Warner's just way better and Kurt Warner takes over and like we never hear about Matt Leinart again, which I doubt is going to happen here, although Trubisky is a fantastic prospect. I think Kenny Pickett's going to start football games for this team. And so, yeah, he doesn't need to think about this as a competition. Yeah, I just had to,
fantastic.
But look, Kenny's going to start games, so for him, yes, this is a competition for week 1, but at some point Kenny takes over. At some point, this is his team and he knows that. And so for him, I think it's healthy for him to not think about this as I need to start week 1. I that is my goal. I have to do this right now. For him, kind of a long game here, get myself prepared. Don't rush this, get in there and learn the system, learn the people, build the rapport, because and be the best Kenny Pickett he can be whenever the time is for him to take over.
No, and that's a good point. And, I think the best way, it might not be as much of an arrogance or he knows he got, there's no pressure on him. If he doesn't win the job this year, so what? Like they got him because they knew that he was like, hey, this guy, even if this guy has to takes a year to work, they're confident that he can be here. But again, that's why they signed Mitch Trubisky. There was no surprise there. And both Mitch Trubisky and Mason Rudolph had talked about like, hey, we're happy to work with the young guys. We're excited to get some rookies while having some vets on the roster. It's actually an interesting dynamic. So I think it might just be more so that Kenny knows that right now he's playing with house money. If he wins the starting job, it's an amazing story. If he doesn't win the starting job, oh well, he has a lot of time to do that, even beyond this year. Say Mitch Trubisky. I'm not saying this is going to happen. But say Mitch Trubisky has a Pro Bowl season and comes back next year.
Wouldn't be a second, by the way.
Of course, I can't go anywhere with you. But let's say that he does that and he comes back next year as the starter who just did the Pro Bowl and the Steelers won their first playoff game since 2017 and everyone's like, oh my goodness, this is can Kenny beat that out? Then we're looking at something different there. Would there even be pressure then? Because it's like, what, Trubisky's only on a 2-year deal. If Trubisky doesn't like have a phenomenal year, Kenny Pickett could wait until his 3rd year of his rookie contract and then be the guy that takes over. So I think the real pressure is on Mitch Trubisky to prove that he can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Still, he was a backup all last year. I also think it's important for Mason Rudolph to show, hey, buddy, I can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Mitch Trubisky at least had 4 years of a starter and 50 starts. Mason's only had 10 starts under his belt, and they haven't been amazing starts. At least Trubisky's been to a Pro Bowl, like you said. Mason has a lot to prove, and I talked about this on the Monday episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. How I don't think it's that crazy. Actually, I think I talked about that on Tuesday. Excuse me. So not the Monday episode, but the Tuesday episode. I don't think it's that crazy to think that there could be a way for him to win the job. He's still my 3rd most likely, and I would put him around 25% of the chance, whereas like Kenny was like 35%, and I think Mitch was like 45%. I'm bad with numbers. That's probably not it.
I think you got it. I think that's. I'm also bad with simple math, but I think the numbers add up there.
It was close enough. It's in the range. But point being, I think that this isn't crazy for Kenny to talk this way about the competition because, again, he's more so worried. He said, I don't know the whole playbook yet. I'm working on that. I'm working on NFL. And he said, I asked these guys, and it was funny when we asked him, like, do you sit down with him? He's like, it's not like I asked them to tell me all their secrets. It's just when we're working, when I see, one of them use a certain kind of footwork when we're doing one sort of play, I'm like, why did you do it that way? And he talked about how it's those little specifics that he's picking up that he's like, hey, how can I tweak my game to be more NFL ready at a faster pace?
The playbook is easy, Kenny. It's first down, it's a quick slant, and then second down, it's shotgun, running up the middle for no gain, and then third down, it's a little crosser over the middle for like 6 yards when you needed 12. And that's the playbook. It's pretty easy. I'm kidding.
Look, you just taking your shots at Matt Canada here, I see.
Well, is it Matt Canada or is it just like that was what Ben liked to run at the end? And they just kept, because I don't want to derail this entire show, but so much of what the Steelers did at times last year was the exact same stuff they ran under Fichtner. That there was some truth to the idea that like Ben's going to run what Ben wants to run, and we're going to get like the sprinkle of Canada in there. I am genuinely intrigued as to what the offense is going to look like this year because I just can't imagine it's going to be the same thing as it's been the last 2 years.
I'm in the same boat as you. I think there's going to be a lot of things that open up. We'll talk about that as we see more things with OTAs. But I also wanted to talk about something that happened when we were talking to Kenny at the end of his conversation, where we had some interjection from another Pittsburgh Steeler. If you're up on Steelers Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. If you missed it, you're going to see a clip from the locker room of this very moment, because it was a nice, fun moment. We'll do that in just a minute here. But first, we got to talk to you guys about betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting and stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports and developments, league reviews, news, including this year's NBA Finals, which start this Thursday. Celtics, Warriors. It's going to be fun. Get all your info and betting information at betonline.net, as well as the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're headed to the conference finals. That's going to be exciting, as well as Major League Baseball. All of it right on betonline.net, which is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action when you visit BetOnline, where the game starts. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast with Chris Carter. He is Tony Serino. So, Tony, I wanted to talk to you about this moment that I got on my camera when we were talking to Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was being asked about getting to know people with the Steelers, because he knew everyone at Pitt. Now he has to kind of do that all over with the Steelers, and being the quarterback, you really got to know people. So this was how that response played out right from the Steelers locker room at OTAs on Tuesday.
Where are you on learning everybody's names? And when we talked to rookie minicamp, you're like, that's next up on my to-do list.
Yeah, we're making good strides there. I get here pretty early. It's usually the same crew I'm with for breakfast, but lunch, 12:14, I got about like 15 minutes to lift and grab a lunch and go meet. So it's kind of like that's the time I'm trying to learn everybody's name, and it's been going well. You know my name? Cam.
You next to Cam?
Yeah, huh?
Who's next to Cam?
I don't know.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Kenny, was this your first time throwing to 18 today?
It was, yeah.
What's your interaction been like with him?
Yeah, I mean, you can see off the bat how special of a player he is. So I'm really excited to, get more time to work with him and see what, I can do to help his game elevate.
What about you and Najee? It looked like you guys had some interactions. Obviously, you want to talk to all the guys on the field, but what are your takeaways working with him and just getting to know him?
I mean, like pretty much like Diontae, you just kind of tell when some guys are different. I mean, he's a different kind of guy, physically and how he can play the game and what he can do. So he's a guy that, has been here for a year, so just kind of, mess around with him, talk to him once in a while, and just get what I can learn from the running backs too. So just really trying to touch, all position groups really.
What's it been like having a locker next to Cam?
Yeah,
I know he's sitting right next to you here, but wait.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, obviously, he's such a strong leader, presence on the team, and he's a defensive guy, so I can kind of learn, how he leads on that side of the ball and take some things away and bring it to the offensive side. So it's been going really well.
Can a guy like Diontae make you a better quarterback?
So, as you can see, Cam Heyward just butting in on Kenny's conversation. But this was part of what I was excited about when he said, I'm making sure that their new rookie quarterback, his locker's next to me. Also, the person whose locker was on the other side of Cam is Connor Heyward. So when they asked Kenny about it, and Cam said,
in line.
Don't worry about it. Like, that was him kind of, making fun of his brother, which he's been doing a lot in training camp. But Tony, I just want to get your thoughts, seeing that and just the casual just interaction there from a leader who's been on the Steelers for more than a decade now, and the guy who they drafted to be the leader for the next decade.
Love it. Love that clip. And again, the camaraderie in the locker room, between Cam, who is the kind of the de facto leader, not just of the team, or not just of the defense, but really of the team in general now that Ben Roethlisberger is retired. The other thing I love there, obviously there's the fun bit of like, do you know my name? But also I love there, Kenny talking about not what he can learn about Cam Heyward about the game of football, or he talked about, I want to learn how Cam leads that defense because I need to do the same thing with this offense. Right. And I think it is an important thing now that Ben is gone. Someone's got to kind of take over the leadership of this offense. It naturally will fall to the quarterback. Although I think Najee Harris could be someone who fits in as far as a, kind of an intermediate there between now and whenever Kenny Pickett takes over, becomes kind of that entrenched leader of this group. But love to see that from Kenny Pickett, understanding that part of his job is not just to throw the football, right? His job is going to be a leader of men, to get this team to believe that they can do extraordinary things on the football field. You love to see that he's going to be taking, a kind of a mentorship with Cam Heyward.
Absolutely. And I think that is a great sign, and especially because Cam Heyward is one of those Mr. Steeler type of guys. And I say this on the show every once in a while. There are certain guys who are Mr. Steelers, and Mr. Steelers just aren't the best players on the team. They're the guys who embody the leadership component of what you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Like, for example, or even if you lead by example, you don't have to be the loudest person on the team. For example, Jerome Bettis was a Mr. Steeler. He was an ambassador to what it meant to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I felt Heath Miller was a Mr. Steeler. Never said anything, just did everything you were supposed to do, was the example of what you needed to be. Hines Ward was a Mr. Steeler. He was the example, and he was the guy that was the leader. But I think that was something that people were talking about in the mid 2010s. Like, who are the leaders on this team? Who do you look towards? And everyone thought Ben Roethlisberger. You had Antonio Brown blowing up, but Antonio Brown, people were like, okay, but he's not a leader. Like, he's not that. He's a leader on the field, but not a leader in the locker room as much. They were what's up. Well, Le'Veon Bell stepped to that role. Well, that didn't work out. That didn't work out that way. And so now you're in a position where Ben's gone, and you need those guys. Well, you have one of the more established leaders I think that you've had over the past decade, and that is Cam Heyward. And he's not just a guy on the field who makes plays. He's not just a nice guy that everyone kind of looks to. He's loud about it. He lets people know. And I still remember when Joe Hayden made that tackle on the fourth for the fourth down against the Titans that won the Steelers the game, and they brought out the sticks and they put the marker down, and you just see Cam Heyward just yelling short, and just losing it, and everyone kind of feeding off of him. That this guy, everyone goes to war for him. And I think you're right. That's what Kenny wants to pick up, because Kenny did that in college. I covered Kenny at Pitt. They would follow that man into a battle, into war. They called him a warrior. Like, even before this past year when he blew up, he was their undisputed leader. I think what Kenny's talking about is learning how Cam did it in the pros.
Yeah. And you love that we heard a report, I forget when it was probably like 5 years ago now, maybe even longer. There was a report that at the end of the year, the defense and the offense were kind of at odds, right? That there was kind of a wedge driven in the team between the offense and the defense. And the defense felt like the offense wasn't pulling their weight. And certainly, if there was ever a defense in the NFL right now that could feel like they were wronged, especially as not only over the last season, I mean, you talk about the last 3 seasons, what this defense has been able to do on the football field and how they've kind of been wronged by an offense that, just even the year that the offense was good enough, which was that year that they made the playoffs against the Browns, was it 5 turnovers in that game that they had? Again, this defense could certainly kind of have an eye on this offense. Like, listen, you guys need to turn it around. And Cam could certainly have the same attitude towards this rookie, which is not this kind of playful, hey, let's be, friends and kind of let me help you along, but kind of look at him like, listen, kid, I'm in the last years of my prime here, and we got a great defense, and you better, get this thing together over there, because we're wasting what is a great defense right now in Pittsburgh. But it's not that way. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's kind of taking him along and, taking him under his wing and saying, like, let me show you the ropes, so that even if the window never opens while Cam Heyward is still in his prime, that the next window will be open. And Cam Heyward, at least part of his legacy could be helping Kenny to open that next window.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I see it. And Cam understanding that this isn't just for me. This is for the future of the Steelers. And him wanting to not just have him around, but to be up in his business. Feel like, hey, I'm going to have this cool interaction with him right now. I'm going to check up on him. I'm going to let him know this is what we expect. Those are all important things. You're passing on your leadership skills to the next generation. That was something that, I think people talked about. That didn't happen in the early 2010s when you had Troy Polamalu, James Ferry, and that crew. There wasn't a connection between them and the Antonio Browns and the guys that took over. In fact, we know Ryan Clark and them were at odds with Antonio Brown. So there was a divide there. And there certainly was a competition factor between and every year there's scraps, but there were scraps between the offense and the defense, and the offense feeling the defense was too physical at times, and those being issues. So what does Cam do? He's like, let's befriend the guy that they drafted to run the offense for the next couple of decades, and let's set this tone right now. That's going to set a different tone. And I'll tell you another thing that Kenny Pickett did, even before this year when he blew, or last year when he blew up as a senior, fifth-year senior at Pitt. He brought the offense and the defense together for Pitt, because Pitt was very much the same way. They always got after the quarterback. They always stuffed the run. They gave some big plays on defense, but their offense would kind of sputter, and that would put the Panthers in some tough situations. And one thing he did, and Mike Tomlin openly talked about this and how much he loved that he saw this, and again, this is the benefit of the Steelers being able to see things up close and personal because they share the same workout facilities. but he got to see Kenny Pickett and DeMar Hamlin come together and kind of bring the offense and defense together for the Pitt Panthers. And that was a big part of the culture shift that happened at Pitt that led to them winning the ACC championship this year and being projected as maybe a top 15 team even after Kenny Pickett is gone. Those type of culture things are so important, even not in college sports, but in the pros and especially in the NFL. Again, this is why I think that's why I wanted to show y'all that clip specifically, because I do think there is something special about a guy, Cam Heyward, who has represented all the good things that you want to hear from a Steeler and see it from a Steeler, and a guy who's been one of the best Steelers over the past decade, one of the best NFL players over the past decade, and him taking on the guy they drafted to run the offense at the most important position in football. That I think could be something special to keep watching.
No, it's awesome to see it, and yeah, I mean the kind of the togetherness of this team. You know, look, it can take a group from being, you know, a B squad to maybe not an A+ squad, but those divisions in locker rooms drive teams apart, and they show up not just in the locker room, but they show up on the football field.
Yes,
you know, of course, you know the whole Jesse James talking about we were the Kardashians, you know, during that 9-7-1 year.
Yeah,
no, 9.
No, that wasn't
9-6-1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that no, it's just 9-7 that year. That was the year that they lost to like the Raiders, Chargers, and Broncos 3 weeks in a row.
Something like that, yeah. Because it was the 2018 season where they just missed the playoffs.
They just missed the playoffs. Yeah, they were the last team to beat the Patriots that year. Yeah, and then Jesse leaves and he says, you know, we were the Kardashians at the end of the year. And I think Mike Tomlin has done the right thing since then, which is, you know, let's make sure that, you know, we're bringing in guys who, you know, back in the day with Antonio Brown, you put up with as much as you wanted to put up with because of the talent level. I don't know that I wonder if you got Tomlin to truth serum, would he say that maybe was a mistake, and that or would he do the same thing today with players like that? Does he still believe in that, or is it more important to have a locker room that is, you know, 100% together and you know, does that lead to better output on the football field? Because certainly the 3 years since then, the Steelers haven't fallen off, even though from a talent perspective, no Le'Veon Bell, no Antonio Brown, you know, you certainly saw a talent fall off, but it didn't show up on the football field.
That's a big question. You know, would he do things over again? I imagine he would, but I also imagine he wouldn't do it like in a totally different perspective. I think he would be like, you know what, maybe we'd hang on to this guy over that guy. Maybe we'd, you know, do you like, for example, though, do you give up the best receiver in football for 6 straight years because of his attitude when you know that during those 6 years you controlled him? Maybe you focus on something else. Maybe you say, hey, we're going to invest in the defense a little bit differently. You know, like right. For example, in 2016, if they draft Xavier Howard and Kevin Byard instead of Artie Burns and Sean Davis, are we talking about this? Are they a much better team in those years? Do they win more playoff games? Do they get to the Super Bowl in those years? You know, there's things like that can always play into, and that's the whole problem I think with doing the hindsight being 2020 is that you could say that for a lot of things. I think though, Mike Tomlin, it's obvious he does value the locker room and does value leadership and wanting those guys to carry that. And it seems like the Steelers are getting those high quality type of players who understand that and want to contribute to that moving forward. That's who Kenny Pickett was at Pitt. That's who Cam Heyward's been with the Steelers. And I think that's what Cam Heyward wants to help Kenny Pickett continue to be as a professional in the NFL. We'll see how that plays out. Day 2 of OTAs in week 2 of the Steelers. So I guess day 6 technically of OTAs. No, day 5. I'm terrible at math. It's day 5 of OTAs, but week 2. So the second day of the second week of OTAs before minicamp starts next week. We'll get to that in a bit here. So thanks for checking on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Tony, thank you for appearing on the Locked On Steelers podcast. You're always a joy to have here and a lot of fun. Let people know they can find you, follow you, get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Steeler Country, and you can find me on YouTube. I do a show called AFC North Talk. It is a roundtable show all about the AFC North, and right now we are doing our position rankings. We will be live on Thursday evening doing running backs this week, so check that out.
Where the Steelers rank.
1, baby.
There you go.
Back to back, 1 in every category.
Watch that episode because Tony brings the heat for the Steelers.
They're not 1. They're not.
Okay, wait. In running back?
In running back, they're not 1. For the AFC North, no, they're not 1. They're not 1. Come on.
You dare diss Najee Harris?
I don't
dare.
Saw
what he was talking about on Twitter yesterday. You saw what he was.
He's very upset. He gets very upset with everybody. Najee, don't watch Thursday's show. Everyone else though, tune in.
Dude, do tune into AFC North Talk. That is a very entertaining show. They do a great job there. Thanks again, Tony, for being on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Watch this show or listen to this show on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, and YouTube. Watch this video on YouTube, and if you like it, do hit the like button and then subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content, which is bonus episodes, breaking news updates, etc., etc. If you want to help out the show, go on Apple Podcasts, rate us 5 stars with a positive comment with your 5-star review. Do both at the same time, and you get a shout out at the end of the show. Thanks again for checking us out here. We'll be back tomorrow with more on your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.